Hello YouTube, it's me, Lightshaver, and today I'm doing a deck profile on my Constellar deck that you normally see me playing with in match. You can already see some differences in it from normal Constellar builds, so I'm just gonna go and explain the unobvious stuff. I run 2 bears because I run 2 goals. I like bears popping ability, and I sometimes like the smokescreen that I'm a 5 this deck, and if I lose match 1 quickly when I see I'm not gonna win, like against rulers that obviously drew their nuts, I just let them think I'm a 5 this deck, and then game 2 they get a real surprise. I also did this to make Such and Tiki a little bit more consistent. I did that instead of bumping Sheraton up to 3 because I don't like Sheraton, he's a weak body. I run 3 Ajiti, I like Ajiti. 3 Cuss, 3 Clocks, 2 Sheratons, so I'm very honest. 1 Book of Moon. The Goys. I really dislike back row, as you can see with the 2 lances and the 2 trap stunts, also with the typhoons. It's searchable by bear, made it a neat tech, and it makes the card take up space in your opponent's back row. It's also good against cards that you don't want to trip after they've been played, like Abyss Spear, Return from a Different Dimension, Spellbook of Fate. Once those pretty much set, they pretty much is live, unless, well, you could chain this Typhoon to Abyss Spear, but if you played it on Abyss Spear, it's gonna go off, and I don't think you want to waste 2 on Abyss Spear. Magic Planner. Magic Planner is my draw engine in this deck. I'm not a fan of duality really. I don't like the life points gain upstart Goblin Gives, even though I used to before in this deck and there's a few other decks. Magic Planner works with the thing I do best in this deck, which is abuse penalties. I run 8 targets for it, and Magic Planner surprisingly rarely been dead in this build. 2 Call to Harness, because using Call to Harness on Sombres is very good. You can bounce the repelities and revive Sombres again later. Reviving Cuss, basically they get off penalties if you only have another Constellar monster like Blocks or a GD. Sometimes to get that additional bear pop. It also makes Thunder King Ryu and Banisher of the Radiance a real nuisance when I side them in for game 2 and game 3. Phoenix Chain, Monster Negation. Safe Zone, a card I feel is overlooked. It's a great defensive card because when your opponent sees you got penalties with 2 materials on it, that safe zone after they wasted a dark hole on it, they know they in for it. It causes people to waste their typhoons, even though it destroys the monster it's equipped to. If they blind typhoon it, you could target their monster be destroyed. Combos well with Magic Planner. I can overlay out of it, Omega out of it. Very good card. Trap Stun, because I really don't like back row. Turn my Vanity off sometimes. Turn off some of my opponent's back row cards, like Robbery of the Warlords, or maybe Their Mistake. There's several cards that I like to turn off, especially Skill Drain. Well, I don't need to say anything about Vanity, because Vanity's being around in most things these days. Feasible by penalties though in here, which is nice. And if it ever gets in my way, Magic Planner is a more convenient way to get rid of it than most decks. Now for the side deck, I run 3 Banisher of Radiance. This is for Mud Mill most of the time. I had this in here also to cover a few other decks. It surprisingly works well against dragons because they can't use their discard effects against it. they could banish monsters to try to run over it, but knowing that you a Constellar deck, they'll be afraid just to attack into it when you have back row face down, because you probably have something to protect it, and you have several cards to protect it. They might think you have Mirror Force, Dimensional Prison, even though you don't run those. They might think that you have them. And if he is destroyed, call the Honda, safe zone him. Lance when bigger stuff try to run over it. And you basically have something that shut down the graveyard for most of the match and give your opponent a lot of headaches. One Thunder King Ryu. I could main deck Thunder King Ryu, but if I feel it might get in the way of Sheraton and tanking too much, because if you have a Thunder King Ryu, you generally gonna summon it and sit on it, and then you might draw into one of these two later, and they will temporarily be dead. One Dimensional Fissure, two Destinados, two Girls and Match, mostly for dragons. Iron Imperial Wall. Yes, I play Iron Imperial Wall and Banisher Radiance. I usually don't swap them in at the same time. Sometimes I do, depending on how I feel about my opponent's build. In a dragon matchup, if I go first, I usually try to sit on Banisher or Fisher, Cosmo, Soul Drain. If I'm going second, then I'll probably try to go the Iron Imperial Wall way with Soul Drain. One more quiz Cosmo. Mistake. Mostly for spell books. Also does a number on dragons, especially if you have it up while you have Banisher on the field. Banisher, Vanity together, or Banisher, Mistake together is a pretty big headache to dragons. Basically, Thunder King Ryu number 2 and 3 in some situations. Soul Drain's just that good. For the extra deck, it's pretty standard. Look, they changed the Evil Swarm monster name to Evil Swarm actually. I actually liked the Noble Swarm name, but wish it was called Constellar Swarm. And I got number 101. I originally played a third Pellades and Crazy Box here. Crazy Box was just to beat over stuff in Skill Drain, because Skill Drain will kill you, and that's why I had these two Destinados on the side where all of this back row hate I have already. I have Wind Up Zemon in this deck. Like his top popping ability, combos with Safe Zone well. People really like the chain trap cards when he come out, so get that lance on him when he's coming out and take out the rest of your opponent's back row. You're in good shape. Many of the viewers is probably wondering why I don't play any staple traps in here actually, because Solomon 1 and Solomon 1 and Bottomless is just that good. The idea of this build more is to play mind games with your opponent by using cards that's good and fits the engine of your deck without necessarily using the set cards. Say for instance, you run into, I don't want to say Evil Swarms because we should win that matchup regardless, but let's say you run into a Bujin. Now, a Bujin player will expect you to have back row because you're one of the decks that generally run a lot of heavy back row. Now, they're going to try to play around your Dimensional Prisons, your Mirror Force, your Bottomless Trapo. Yeah, somehow find a way to play around them, but if you don't have them, they're really playing around cards that you don't have that could benefit you in a way. They might not go for a win in certain situations where they'd be able to win if they was convinced you didn't have that mirror force set. Most of these trap cards is very abusable by penalties and Magic Planner, and even though I could have fit in one of the Staples trap cards, I thought it would honestly overall disrupt the goal of the build, which is to play some serious mind games with your opponent and react to situations when you want to react to them instead of having to react to them at a certain time. The thing that's not so good about the staple trap cards is most of them have specific times when they could be activated. Besides compulsory, that card's just good, but obviously bottomless warnings only on summons, Toronto only on summons, Mirror Force, Deep Prison. Others that I probably didn't even bother mentioning, but all of them only work at specific times. These work whenever you want to play them, and being continuous cards, Vanity obviously have a more lasting impact on the game. Save Zone has a more lasting impact. Chain Will 2, instead of using good one-off cards, you using cards that can continuously impact the game or be disposed of to get some type of advantage. And I told you about the extra deck changes I did over this format. I did some main deck changes as well. I used to play 10-2 to go with share 10, but I decided to drop it to test the second goal. Second goal been working good. I decided that 10-2, even though it made share 10 cuss, and Sunburst cuss a live pair instead of a dead pair, that it was being not used too much. I also at some point ran 6 senses, but decided even though you will win the duel one third of the time you actually activate the card, I decided it just wasn't consistent enough even though it was that powerful. I also didn't get much off of the meals, even though it gives the graveyard feel for Sombre. If I didn't get the draws off of it, I wasted a card. And back row started becoming more of an issue because when you verse rulers, every time they set a trap card, it's live against you. The only way a card that they set won't be live against you is either they run in staple back row or they don't have a card in their hand. Because once they set Rajiki Break, Phoenix Right Ring Blast, Return, or Six Senses, or Typhoon, because they run Typhoon, is live against you once they end. And that pretty much gives them the ability to set wherever they want and bluff wherever they want. And Trapstunner gives me the ability to try to answer that with the rest of my back row destroyers. The reason I dropped the Lance was, even though I really like being unaffected by back row, needed to fit the second trap stun in there, and sometimes Lance was being a little dead. It's rarely dead, but sometimes the 800 wasn't making a difference. Sometimes I had no monster to use it with. Oh, that's why you don't be stationary this long on DN. Now, I pretty much lost whatever I was gonna say about it, but I explained basically all my choices in this build. Feel like I commented enough on them. So this is my deck profile. If you want to duel me on Duel Network and see how the deck performs, you obviously know my username's Lightshaver. Like if you like, leave your comments below, and go Constellars.